honored to have him join us to be our keynote today, Pete Wright.
Jason, thank you very much. Before I talk about dyslexia, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. Analysis of any particular thing. Tell Peter's parents he's got to get a comprehensive educational, neurological, and psychological evaluation of him. Hopefully, all of that done will then point some figures as to what's going on. So my parents had all that testing done, and the way it was explained to me is that the feedback to my parents was in a conference room, a big conference table, and my parents were seated in the middle, the chair was across the table, and the chair said, "Mr. and Mrs. Wright, Peter has a lot of problems." And the way my mother explained it to me, she said, and Dad said, he blurted out, we know. But we know what's wrong with Peter. Peter has Strephosymbolia, and he also has an acute hyperkinetic disorder. Now, over time, they changed that label of acute hyperkinetic disorder to MBD, minimal brain damage. Mr. and Mrs. Wright, Peter has damage in the brain, but it's minimal. Parents got upset about scrambled eggs in the kids' heads. But we don't mean damage like scrambled eggs. We mean a dysfunction of neurotransmitters, of chemicals. And they later, the American Psychiatric Association changed it from minimal brain damage to minimal brain dysfunction. They could use MBD, the same three letters. And then later, of course, now it's referred to as ADD, ADHD. With regard to the Strephosymbolia, twisted symbols in Latin, what do we do about that? Mr. and Mrs. Wright, what you have to do is you have to find someone who has been trained in how to teach children with Strephosymbolia, how to read, write, spell, and do arithmetic. And there is a whole approach that's having great success. It was created by the neurologist, Dr. Samuel T. Orton, and he joined forces with an educator, Anna Gillingham. And you've got to find someone who has learned how to teach children using the Orton-Gillingham approach to teach Peter how to read, write, spell, and do arithmetic. My parents learned that the best person in the D.C. area was Diana Hanbury King. There's a picture of Diana. I ended up having tutoring from her one-on-one, an hour a day, every day after school for an entire year. She told my parents that I need much more than that this is not just reading, writing, arithmetic, and spelling. It's global life events and living, sequencing issues, tying shoes. It impacts many, many different areas, and that he needs a 24/7 living environment, a residential camp, operated by Helene Durbro, who did training of Orton-Gillingham practitioners, where Diana King got her training. So I went to that camp, and at that camp, my tutor, my surrogate father figure, my counselor was Roger Saunders. Roger Saunders later became internationally famous in helping developing countries how to teach children with not Strephosymbolia, as the name was back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s, but now dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. And he worked with me, and then I came back and worked with Diana for another year, one-on-one every day after school. Her goal was to get me not up to age and grade level. Her goal was to get me 2 years above age and grade so I would never, ever have any problems with reading, writing, arithmetic, and spelling. I was given a comprehensive assessment back when I was in the 6th grade, and I saw the test data, and I was at the 8th grade level in all areas. So she accomplished her objective. Diana Hanbury King later founded a school that's up in Amenia, New York, called the Kildonan School. And at that school, she also created a camp that did the same thing that Helene Durbro's camp, Camp Mansfield, did, where I was educated, called Camp Dunnenbeck. Helene Durbro's camp, Camp Mansfield, is no longer in existence. So Diana King, now, she's since retired. She's retired last year from Kildonan, but I saw her 3 weeks ago. I do a lot of training conferences around the country, and I was up in Connecticut and Long Island, so I went by and spent a half a day with her, and she's doing just great. So basically, my parents really sacrificed. I did not realize, of course, at the time, what the economic impact of tutoring every day after school for 2 years plus a residential camp. I had no idea what that did financially to my parents. I realized many years later, it set them back years. Economically, it set them back years. They mortgaged their economic future. But the whole goal was to get Peter educated, and they accomplished their objective. Now, Strephosymbolia. I was in around the 2nd grade, so I was about between 7 and 8 years of age when I had the intense remediation. It began, you saw the comments in 2nd grade comments. I know he has these reversal tendencies. That's because Diana went up to the school and met with my teachers. And the first time she went in and saw me in class, she saw my left hand tied behind my back as they were teaching me how to write with my right hand, which I'm left-handed. So she interacted with them quite a bit and got them over to her side. She didn't get into a battle with them. Instead, she co-opted them to help her, and she accomplished that successfully. Basically, going back to Strephosymbolia, that word first would have came into print on July 25, 1925, when Dr. Samuel T. Orton did a presentation at the American Neurological Association, and in that he called this condition Strephosymbolia, and characterized the nature of the name of the talk was word blindness in school children. This is a book that was created from his lined yellow pad notes of what Strephosymbolia is. And so I've scanned in some portions of it so you can see what it looks like. July 25, there's a picture of him. This came from his notebook. After he passed away, his wife, June Orton, got together all of his papers and collected them together, and then later they were donated, and this particular book has, in his own writing, what it is all about. This is it. And he was left-handed. Notice he slants to the left, as a person that is left-handed should do. And this is page 1, and he goes in the detail, getting into the neurology of it, and then I got the last page here. So this is something that's been out known about since 1925. In 1975, Congress passed a law known as Public Law 94-142, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. And just looking at a couple portions of the law, I'm going to take you into our law book right here. So this is the cover page. We're going to go to the purpose of the law. The purposes of this title are to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and to prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. So that's the whole purpose of the special ed law. Prepare the children for further education, employment, and independent living. Now I'm going to take you to the part about the definitions part, and that's in 1401. And in the definitions part, it defines a child with a disability. A child with a disability means a child with mental retardation, hearing impairments, including deafness. It continues on and on with a bunch of different things. It's got the keyword "and." Next page. Who by reason thereof needs special education and related services. So in order to be eligible for an IEP, not only must the child have a disability, but because of that must need special ed and related services. And now we're going to go look at the definition of a specific learning disability. Number 30, in general, the term specific learning disability means a disorder of one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding language spoken or written, which disorder may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or do mathematical calculations. And then disorders include such conditions as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. And I have been hearing, ever since the law has been out there, since the litigation started, litigation didn't really start until 1978, I've been hearing dyslexia is not covered by the law. It's been in the statute since 1975. A couple of footnotes here. Some people believe that the definition of LD has changed. It has not changed in IDEA. For more about what has changed, and that's the discrepancy models, it's in 1414b6. And as I note right here in the footnote, these terms were the same one used by Congress when they passed the law in the 1970s. From a legal perspective, dyslexia is a learning disability that adversely affects educational performance. So we looked at the purpose of the law and the legal definition of dyslexia. And the definition has not changed since 1975. Now, what did happen, so the law was passed in 1975. Now, for parents who contact me and their child has dyslexia, one of my first questions is, are you a member of the International Dyslexia Association? And most often the answer is no. What is that? Well, it used to be called the Orton-Dyslexia Society. I became a member of the Orton-Dyslexia Society about 1970, I guess 72 or 73. That you have to do if you have a child with reading issues is not only do you need to join organizations, but you've also got to get good quality and diagnostic workups. And so many school districts around the country are not really qualified to drill down in depth and administer some of the more difficult, more comprehensive reading, writing, arithmetic, and spelling kinds of tests, and then understand what they mean, and then be able to help others figure out what to do with the data. Sometimes you get the data, but nobody really knows how to teach the kids. So your job is to get good quality evaluations of the child, and then you, the parent, you've got to understand the test data, the test scores. When I tell you the child got a similarity subtest score of 16 and a coding of 4, you have to understand immediately what that means and why that is very, very significant as it relates to the problems your kid's going to have and is presently having in the school. I'll be around, so if you have questions later on.